Have you been disconnected from your core? Discover how the Graham technique can inspire you to take hold of your center of power in a sensual way. My name is Candia Raquel, and you are at the Sensual Sessions Podcast, the place to explore sensing pleasure through your senses and moving in a way that it's free from inhibition and full of self expression. Make sure to subscribe free to get these episodes on your email inbox weekly at my website, which is my name, candiaraquel.com, www.candiaraquel. And today we have a very special guest. This is David Hochoy. He's a dance artistic director from the company Kaleidoscope for a long time. He's emeritus. And he was a soloist from the Martha Graham technique under the direction of Martha Graham herself. So, David, I am truly honored to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Candia. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for asking me.
Yes. So
Oh,
I've been reading a little bit about your background, and
mhm.
I discovered that you went to school to become a doctor,
That's
and
correct.
you became a bachelor in science, and
Yes.
then what happened? Because from there you went to dancing at the Martha Graham.
Yes,
Uh,
it was a big switch, but you know, I think very early on when I was in undergraduate school, I think I made my decision that I really didn't want to be a doctor because I didn't want to look at sick bodies for the rest of my life. And it's really interesting that this was the 60s. Um, and I mean, talking about sensual, and in the 60s, we were the drug generation, right? So we did lots of drugs. We did LSD and mescaline and all of those drugs. And so the first drug that I was introduced to was mescaline, which I'm sure you know a lot about in Mexico, right? Um,
yes.
and that is when I discovered that I love to dance because it was a very, in a strange way, sensual trip. And we put some fantastic music on, and I found myself dancing. And so that's when I discovered that I really liked to dance and that I could dance. But it stayed very sort of tucked away in the corner. And I started becoming interested in the theater. And so I went to do my master's in theater at Pennsylvania State University, and that's when I really discovered dancing because we were doing a musical, and they said, can you sing and dance? And I said, yes, I can. And those were my first formal lessons in dance, and I was 20 years old. I was pretty old to start dancing, but everything felt so right to me. It's all of a sudden I felt, wow, this is where I need to be. This is where I want to be, and uh, I kept on studying, and then I moved to New York and had a dream to become a dancer, and took a lot of classes. I knew I had a lot of work to do, but I was determined to do it. And after many uh, failures and many trying and not getting in, I finally got into the Martha Graham Company in 1980. And that changed my life completely.
In 1980, and I know that you became a soloist in 1982, the year that I was born. So,
Oh, wow. Yes, I became a soloist in 1982, and then I became the rehearsal director in 1986. And I would have to tell you that I probably learned just as much or even more being a rehearsal director because really what I tried to do was I tried to get inside of Martha Graham's mind and try to find out what she liked and try to break it down because that was part of my scientific background too, and explain it to the dancers of how to get what Martha wanted from their performances.
And
I learned a lot from that.
And what do you think Martha Graham wanted the most in general?
Well, so okay, that is a very hard question to answer, but I have to tell you that when I teach Graham technique, I tell them that the one thing that everybody needs to remember is Graham technique is based on three things, really. It's based on physically, it's based on three things: the contraction and release principle, which we can talk about, the spiral of the body around its own axis, and the shifting of the weight into space. But conceptually, the Graham technique is based on externalization of the inner. What Martha did for herself and for her technique, she went inside of herself and said, how am I feeling? Who am I? How do I exist on this earth? What are my fears, my joys? What are things that I feel? And then how can I communicate this to an audience? So I would have to say that the thing that Martha wanted the most was directness in terms of what you are trying to communicate with your audience, because she always felt that dance was communication. And so she wanted you to have that direct kind of connection with the audience, and for it to be powerful, and for it to be passionate and sensual, and as clear and as truthful as you possibly could be. And also vulnerability was very important to her.
Vulnerability was very important to her. I remember a quote from her that said, present your gaze, like be transparent. And also, I think it was Orlando Shecker, the director of the CENADAC, the Centro Nacional de Danza Contemporánea in Mexico, which is Graham based. He spoke about giving the neck like an offering. So it's like, don't just make your spiral with high release and everything. Like, it's not that it's not important to be pretty. Forget about being pretty. You are already hot. That's not the thing. But offer yourself. And I feel that's very beautiful. And there's a special magic to Graham dancers for me, because I have seen bodies and faces that are not like the stereotypical idea of beauty or even prowess, in contrast with ballet. But you see them dancing and you really see the person as if with a transparent skin. Like, I can sense from an audience perspective their life force, almost as if they were skinless. And yeah, vulnerability. So how can you be vulnerable and not be terribly scared at the same time?
That's hard. So there are lots of things that, first of all, I want to say in reference to you. And one of the things I want to share with you, in case you've never heard this, but once when Martha Graham was being interviewed, she said to the interviewer, a triple negative. Now, this is interesting. You know, sometimes you can use a double negative in a sentence, but Martha Graham used a triple negative. She said, I was never fortunate enough not to be able to reveal that which is not pretty. Let's listen to that again. I was never fortunate enough not to be able to reveal that which is not pretty. So in other words, she had to reveal something that was ugly, and what other people considered ugly, because at the time that Martha was dancing about strife and anger and hate and tearing yourself up and passion, those things were never seen on the stage. And that's why I always say to women, the female dancers in my class, I always say to them, it's a great gift that Martha gave you, because up until the time that Martha came along, in order for you to dance as a woman on the stage, you had to be pretty, you had to be a fairy or a princess or a peasant girl. But Martha said, no, you can be strong, you can be powerful, you can be human, you can be outrageous, you can kill your children. That's why she choreographed the dance of Medea, you know. So that is the one thing about that I wanted to share with you about Martha Graham. And then in terms of the vulnerability, I think there are two pathways to treating vulnerability. One of them is external and one of them is internal. Now, the vulnerability externally in the Graham technique means, and you know, the contraction is based on the breath. So it's really sort of when you exhale is getting all of that. Now, I'll show you something here. When I contract and I do this and everything goes inwards, that's a wonderful way of the Graham contraction, of making yourself vulnerable physically. And as you said before, you know, using the side of your neck is really wonderful. Martha also had a wonderful story about that. But that is the external way of doing it. The internal way of doing it, of course, is to go inside of yourself and rip yourself apart and be totally unafraid to reveal a part of yourself. And Martha always said that in order for any performance to be meaningful, you had to reveal a part of yourself that nobody else sees, you know?
You need to reveal a part of yourself that no one else sees. And in a way, that's a true gift, because it's something very unique to you, and precisely it's not your pretty face rehearsed that has become a mask, but it's something authentical. And you know, there's I still remember, like uh, like in between dreams, moments of when I was a little kid, 8 years old, watching the dancers of the Ballet Nacional de Mexico. And the first time I saw a naked torso, I was like 8 years old at the National Auditorium, and they were doing Graham. And what I get is that vulnerability, that transparency is a way of communicating from flesh to flesh, from body to body, that it's like preconceptual. It goes beyond words, because in a way, movement, dancing perhaps was our first language. And there's something that we understand from body to body. Like when you were doing a contraction, I was also doing a contraction, like, not willingly, but my body was like, oh yes. there's something deep. But I believe that can only happen, like, the other person can only listen to you physically if you're really feeling it physically. And then, like, I get it, there's like this external vulnerability that perhaps has to do with technique, but it cannot be, it's almost as if you, it's very hard, I guess, to fake a contraction, or to fake, yeah, like you're doing as if you're doing Graham. I feel it's more authentical. And I am curious to ask you, if what came first, the chicken or the egg? What did Martha developed first, the technique or the repertoire?
Well,
Like,
the Candia, the technique came from the repertory. One of the things that I tell my students all the time is that you have to understand that all of these exercises that we teach in class come from the repertory. I remember Yuriko Kikuchi, who was one of my great teachers. She said, and she was there in the early days with Martha, and she said, David, sometimes Martha, there was no such thing as a structured class. Martha just came into the studio and she just worked for hours and hours on end on what it is that you were doing. And she said, David, sometimes she kept us on the floor for an hour and a half working on fourth position only because that's what she wanted to investigate. That's what she wanted to investigate, just fourth position. And we would do fourth position doing this exercise and fourth position doing that exercise. I was like, oh my God, Yuriko, how did your body survive that? So all of the exercises that are now codified in the Graham technique come from the repertory. Martha Graham didn't really set out to be a choreographer. She set out to be a dancer. She wanted to be a dancer above all things, right? Because that was her dream, to be the most incredible, passionate, powerful dancer in the world. And when she found out that people didn't like what she was doing, or that people considered her ugly or whatever, she said, okay, I'm going to change your aesthetic of what you think beautiful is. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make up my own dances for myself, but I will force you to look at me. And that's why, along with Picasso and Stravinsky, she's considered one of the geniuses of the 20th century, because she was able to change our aesthetic of what we thought was beautiful. Because before Stravinsky, we thought this type of music was beautiful, but after Stravinsky, I mean, and the same thing with Picasso, and the same thing with Martha Graham, because up until that point, nobody had ever seen anything like what Martha was doing. So she didn't start out by being a choreographer. She started out by being a dancer, and she had to choreograph out of necessity to put herself in these things that she felt would showcase herself.
wow. So she had to choreograph as a necessity. And I mean, wow, what a bold woman. Like,
A very bold woman. And I'll tell
extreme.
you, Candia, yeah, one of her earliest pieces is called Heretic. It's 1929. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's about a woman, and she's dressed in white, and she has a whole chorus of women dressed in black, and she portrays somebody who is an outsider, somebody who is different, somebody who is struggling against the society, because she is different and because she is an outcast. And it's really quite an interesting, if you can imagine, in 1929, when the dances in those days were so decorative, but not Martha. She danced this thing called Heretic, and I'm sure she got a lot of boos, but she persisted. That's why her aesthetic is so powerful. She's so original,
Yes. And there's this fleshly honesty to her choreography and to the technique. And I feel it's such an important outlet for expression for any era. And especially on those times like the 1920s, and then the war came. And I somewhere I read that she was invited to do something at the pre-Nazi Germany, and she refused because she she didn't want to comply with the ideologies back in the day. So I feel that up to our days, to me, the spirit of Graham technique has has given me like a spirit of resistance and a spirit of relentless creativity, especially in the midst of trying times. And furthermore, I have this gift of having been trained as a Graham dancer, and I feel so free as a woman, regardless of my age, regardless of my weight, and regardless of my body type. Even though even inside the Graham and modern dance, there are always stereotypes. But I have this like bodily certainty of the primal movements and engines in the body, not only as a dancer, but for everyone, that if you are in touch or you don't lose touch with this primal way of moving, like you are gonna be embodied for a lifetime. And something that is very unique for me is to see dancers that are over 55 years old dancing with such an exquisiteness and such a potency that is not the brute force of someone that is 19 years old, but there's something very special of how the technique, how this crafting that Martha Graham envisioned and found a way to create choreography with them, and then furthermore create a school, is it's a practice for a lifetime. So how are you experiencing the same things of Graham technique, like the contraction, the release, the spirals, having been a dancer, and now that you have another level of knowledge of your own body through experience? I am very curious.
Um, it's really interesting that you should ask me that. So I'm 74 years old. Uh,
What?
74, yeah.
Oh my God.
And I love to dance, and I do every day I do a ballet bar, and I do certain Graham exercises. I do Pilates 6 days a week, um, and I can tell you that I still I there's a great deal of joy for me in moving and being able to move at my age. And I also feel that things mean a great deal more to me now, you know, that I understand certain things. Of course, you know, it's always, I wish I had this understanding when I was 20 years old, but of course, that's impossible because the range of experiences that I went through in order to get to this place is huge. It's immense. It's enormous. Because not only have I had have I had experience as a dancer, but I've had an experience as a teacher, as a choreographer, as an artistic director. So I come at dance from very many different ways, different avenues, and so all of those things add up to a wonderful kind of what can I say, awareness. You know, I always tell students the path to knowledge is never a straight line. It's never a straight line. You think, okay, I'm going to get from A to B and I'm going to go this way, but it's never that way, because you never know where your next piece of knowledge is going to come from. The tree of knowledge has many branches. And so you might be walking down the street one day and you see something and you go, oh my goodness, now I understand what that means. So the great thing is I'm still learning. You know, I'm still learning. I have to tell you that once, and that's one of the things that I think was a great gift for me, and that is that very early on, I became very excited, and maybe it's because I started dancing late, but I became very excited about learning because I had so much to learn. So I became very excited about learning. And I remember when I had just gotten into the Graham Company, I was still very young and fresh in the company, and I was backstage with Martha, and I went up to her with a great deal of joy, and I said, Martha, I want to say thank you so much for having me in your company. I'm enjoying it so much, and I'm learning so much every day, and I never ever want to stop learning. And she turned to me and she said, you know, David, you have discovered the secret of life. So I think that, yes. And I think that as long as you can be excited about learning something new every single day, your life will never be boring. Never. It will never be ordinary either, because there's always something new to learn.
Life
It
will
just,
never be boring.
and talking, like for instance, talking to you today, I'm learning new stuff too. So,
Oh, what an honor. Yeah, and you know, the secret to life, so excited to keep on learning. And that's also the spirit of dancing. I don't know who said it. I think Merce Cunningham said that dance is ephemeral. It only exists in the moment
that's
that
right.
you are dancing. Like a painting, you have it, or music, you have the partiture. But dance is ephemeral and it takes a certain character. And I feel it's connected precisely to this zest for knowledge and a certain, it's like a divine pride and the boldness of throwing yourself to try something new, even if you dance the same choreography that you already know. Every time you show up on stage is a complete different experience because you don't know what unexpected thing can happen. And so it has, you need like this confidence and daring, but at the same time, there's a certain innocence and playfulness and curiosity of the beginner's mind that you're always like, oh, and now what's gonna happen? And I am learning something new, and there's an openness. And I see that as those two sides, like the boldness and the innocence, as beautiful aspects of vulnerability. And now I remember one of my great teachers, Victoria Camero, La Negra, and she said, if you fall, you fall. Like, like, and it's more important that you go for it than if
Right.
you fall, because if you fall, you get up. And in a certain way, that has been a lesson for life because people break their bones when they fall if they paralyze and stop moving. But if you go for it and you fall within this energy of going for it, it's almost as a little kids that they fall and they roll and bounce and nothing happens, or something that, or someone that is super drunk, they fall and they do the same. And I feel that's another great gift from from the Graham technique. And now I am very curious to to know how, how you mm, process, metabolize intense experiences in your life bodily. Like, I don't know, if you have a very bad stomach ache, you do a natural contraction, like you let yourself go, or if you sneeze, you go like, wow, like this was a nice, like, percussive moment, or I'm gonna stretch, and it's like, oh yeah, I am doing like a spiral high release. How is it for you to live in your highly trained Graham body?
How is it for me to live in? Well, first of all, I want to mention certain things. I mean, you do know that about, it's interesting that you were talking about falling. You do know that one of the things that Martha Graham was famous for was inventing these falls, these beautiful, beautiful falls, um, uh, where you, on one count, you go up, and then on the other count, you go down into the floor. and then you recover from the floor so quickly. So she was very, very famous for doing quite a few numbers of falls, and they're very, very, very beautiful. In my aging body, how do I process the Graham technique? It's interesting that we talked about the immediacy of. I loved your comparison of the boldness and the innocence, because dance. Merce was right. Dance is happening only in the moment that it's happening, and every day you're different, right? Every day when you get up out of bed, you are different, and so every day when you approach your dancing, your class, your exercises, whatever it is that you do, it's different, and so you have to approach it with an open mind and an open body. And I recently watched a video of Sylvie Guillem, the very famous ballet star, and she said when she was younger, she hated doing barre. She hated doing barre, but now she's older and she loves doing barre because it is a kind of a meditation for her. And I would have to say that really resonated with me a lot, because when I do my barre, it is kind of like a meditation for me. I know these exercises very, very well, but there's a slight difference every day in how my body feels. I mean, how am I doing this? It's slightly different, and how am I interpreting the music today? It's very different. So it brings me to the immediacy of the moment, and it makes me aware that life happens in a series of seconds. Martha would always tell us, all we have is the now. All we have is the now. We don't have the future. We don't have the past. All we have is now. And that's what dance is all about. It's living in that supreme moment that you are dancing. You are living in the now for that second.
Yeah, there's a beautiful quote from Martha Graham that I have painted in the door of my kitchen with Sharpie. It's a good reminder.
Do you have it painted in Spanish?
I think it's in English. No, nothing else matters in the world but this port de bras. Like, and it's relieving, because suddenly I feel very frustrated for not saving the world myself. So it's like, and I also read that fully being present in your dance and for your audience, it also requires a certain abandonment of the world. And it's like paradoxical, as if fully being like skinless, vulnerable, transparent, like with this like animalistic, fleshy force and expressiveness, requires also to like a certain surrender and a certain abandonment. Like, yeah, there are politics and stuff, but it's like there's also me here, my little self, but my fully alive self offering what I have, which is my flesh, my body, fully to this moment. And of course, there are ballet dancers and martial artists that also know how to tune into that beingness. But I say it again, I have imprinted in my body the moments in movement of the dancers that I saw when I was a little kid. So it's like when you really live in the now, knowing that that's everything that you have, I feel that that state have the potency of creating eternal moments. And suddenly, there's in my mind like the movements of Martha Graham doing Lamentation, and yeah, it's very powerful, and it makes sense that she developed the technique after the choreography, meaning what came first was the true expression of her body in an emotion. And here's a question for normal people, non-dancing people. How to get in touch with vulnerability? How to, what would you say to someone that wants to experience vulnerability?
Well, the first thing, in order to experience vulnerability, you have to trust the environment that you're in, because if you don't trust the environment that you're in, you're not going to be able to be vulnerable. You know, we can only be vulnerable, like for instance, in emotional relationships, right? We can only be vulnerable to people that we trust. Actually, sometimes in relationships, we're accused of not being vulnerable because we don't trust that person. You know, I mean, how many times have you screamed at somebody, I don't trust you? And you know, how can you expect me to be vulnerable to you if I don't trust you? So I think that is the first thing to do. Is if you want to be vulnerable in a certain situation, you have to find a situation or create a situation where you are trusted, where you trust the situation. And it can be emotional, it can be physical, it can be, I mean, and that is why, dancers going on the stage can be vulnerable because they know what they're going into. They know I'm in this space. And when I go onto the stage, it's a sacred space. The audience is there. I'm here. And I'm communicating with you, the audience. And so I can be vulnerable in this way because I know what you expect of me and I know what I expect of you. And therefore I can rip myself apart to pieces on this stage because, you know, the paradigm is very square. It's very known. It's a very known thing. So that's what I would have to say. If you to our general audience, if you want to be vulnerable, find something about yourself that you want to reveal. We all have secrets, right? Everybody has a secret, and it's what makes us interesting. And find some way or some person that you want to reveal this secret to, because that is a way of expressing your vulnerability.
I'm loving it. Find find someone you can trust to reveal that secret, that vulnerability. And there's also like the maturity in assessing that, okay, I am in a safe place, I am in a safe space, this is what it's expected to me, and at least there's this safe context, and there's like the invitation, I am giving you my neck, and there's the offering, and still the other person can say no, but it's clear what one is doing. So have you ever felt like I don't know, like unsure or afraid of, I don't know, going on stage, or yeah, and if so, how did you manage?
Yes, all the time.
All the time? How come?
All the time. Not all the time, but I have to tell you a wonderful story. But first of all, I want to tell you the story about the neck. So
Yes.
Martha Graham, Martha Graham would say, she would tell us a story about the wolves. You have ever heard the story about the wolves?
No.
Oh, your teachers never told you this. She would say
No.
to us, when two wolves are fighting, and they're fighting to the death, when one wolf has realized that it has lost, it gives its neck up to be bitten so that the other wolf can come and bite its neck and kill it. And she would use that wonderful imagery for us for using this part of our neck. She always loved this part of the cheekbone, and the neck was very, very beautiful to her. But in terms of stage fright, I was frightened a lot. I remember when one of the most beautiful roles that I did was the Messenger of Death in Clytemnestra. Clytemnestra is Martha Graham's full evening work, and it opens with the Messenger of Death, one single man coming out on stage, and I had just learned the part, and of course I was very nervous about it. And we were in Greece, and I don't know if you've ever been to Athens, to the Herod Atticus Theater at the base of the Acropolis, in front of 5,000 Greek people. We were performing Clytemnestra, and I am opening the ballet, and I was so nervous. And Martha Graham was there in the wings, and she said to me, "Are you nervous, David?" And I said, "Yes, Martha, I'm very, very, very nervous." And she said, "Well, think of all of the wonderful performers who have gone before you to perform in this space, and now you're one of them." That didn't help me. What helped me was just taking a deep breath and screwing up my courage and saying, "You know what? I'm just gonna have to do this. Nobody's gonna help me. I just have to be brave and do it." And sometimes that's what you just have to do. You just have to be brave. But there were quite a few times that I would be scared going on stage. I don't have huge stage fright issues, but that one particularly I was afraid of, because the responsibility of opening this full evening ballet for the Martha Graham Dance Company in front of 5,000 Greek people who all knew the story. I was like, oh my God.
Yes. In the Acropolis, I mean,
in the Acropolis.
And Martha was like putting the cherry on top of the cake of your stage. Yeah, and just think of all the people that have, and I mean, like Aristoteles and Socrates probably were there before you. Like, oh my God. And I want all the tea. So what happened? Did you got to forget the stage fright like 2 minutes in, 5 minutes in, or never?
Well, no. I mean, once you go on stage, you stop being afraid, because you have to concentrate then on doing it, on projecting that energy out to this 5,000 Greek people. So I couldn't be afraid anymore. What was really hard, of course, was the stage fright. Is all of waiting in the wings, waiting for it to begin. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So, but once it starts, boom, and you go out there, you're in it. You have to be in it.
I am loving it.
Be afraid.
Because I am getting goosebumps, because this is a pure alchemy. It's almost like jumping into the swimming pool. Like either you're, and that's the meaning. Are you in or you're out? Like
you have to jump in.
Yeah, and I remember on the pandemic that I took classes with the best teachers in the whole world, and I took ballet class with Malakoff, and
oh wow, was that incredible?
Incredible. And I have the screen recording, and I used to do the same class like for weeks. Very like it was like it's like a mind super advanced equation his combinations of ballet. And he said, you need to go across the wall and then it's gonna be easy. And that was something to hold on to across the pandemic, because in the beginning it was like, this is gonna last 2 weeks, and then you were already 2 months into COVID, and like, I mean, is this gonna last forever? And it lasted 2 years or a bit more. And it was like, okay, I have to go across the wall and it's gonna be easy. And of course, we know that going across a wall, a brick wall, is impossible. And that was the gift of the message, that you see and you sense and you believe it's impossible to go across the wall. But once you do it, it's gonna be easy. Because if you go across the wall, you're gonna discover it was not a wall, but just like the illusion, a tangible illusion. So that's what I what I feel. And Martha Graham, like, even adding details to the wall of of going on stage. Wow, so
Andy,
such
I'm
a
interested. Did you take class with Malakoff in Germany, or was it in Mexico?
no, in on Instagram
Oh, on
during
Instagram. Oh my
on
gosh.
yeah, he just put his phone there in the hallway of
That's right.
his
I forgot.
kitchen.
During COVID, that's how I did class too. I mean, actually, I had to teach my company, and that I felt so, because it was so sad. Everybody had to take class in their living rooms. It was horrible.
It was horrible, but at the same time, I got to take classes with Zaharova, the prima ballerina, I think, from the Bolshoi. But everyone and everybody was taking classes, giving classes, because we were all going crazy. So I loved the way that dancers go crazy. They go, when everything is falling apart, dancers dance. And I
Absolutely.
feel, yeah. And then, like, oh, it makes sense. Martha Graham did that. And I love, almost as if you were in your mind and in a state of self-centeredness before going to on stage on the Acropolis. And as soon as you were in, you it was almost a state of embodied selflessness, of I don't know,
It's
doing.
like, yeah, it's, what I have to tell you, a possession. Martha always said your dancing should be a possession. Or she said, or you shouldn't go on the stage. Because she felt that you really had to be possessed in order to be on that stage. She was really interesting. I also want to tell you that one of the things she said to me once was that this might interest you too, and that is that she always felt like, if you were a teacher, she always felt that you were someone who had hypnotic power, because she felt that with the right series of exercises and at the right timing, you can draw your students along, and you can make them feel things that they've never before felt in their life. So she really felt like, as a teacher, you had incredible power, because you really could make them feel anything you wanted, because you had this incredible power with the right series of exercises and the right series of movements and the right music. And it's a very interesting way to teach, you know.
Yeah. Yes, a power that should be used for good, not for evil. But have you ever been tempted to seduce someone with your Graham powers?
I think I try it all the time. I try every class that I do, I try to show them how powerful and sensual the technique can be. You know, I do. I try to, because I'm definitely not an intellectual person. The I mean, I can think, I'm smart, but in terms of Apollonian and Dionysian, you know those two,
Yes,
right?
polarities.
Apollonian and Dionysian. I'm definitely more Dionysian. I am definitely a more feeling type of person. Um, I always approach everything through feeling, because that's who I am. I'm not certain to approach it intellectually.
Yeah, and you went to med school to get a confirmation that the
Yeah.
Apollinian way was not your way. So, do you did you use some of your anatomical scientific knowledge to absorb the technique, or it went straight to your body?
I wouldn't say that I didn't have a huge I never took anatomy, so I didn't take I took a lot of chemistry and mathematics.
Okay.
Um, but in terms of the scientific method, um, the way I absorb learning was always very scientific. I always liked to have um, I always liked to know where I was going and to go in a very sort of what can I say, an orderly path towards my goal. And that's what made me a good teacher. And that's what made me a good, actually, what made me a good teacher was because I had to start from the beginning, because I started from nothing, right? So I learned, I mean, I still remember taking my first ballet class and my first tendu, and oh my goodness, it was so painful. But because I had to learn from scratch, from nothing, I was able to explain things in a way that made sense to you, because especially if you hadn't um, uh, danced before in your life, I could explain to you, okay, this is what a tendu is. Um, this is what a contraction is. So that's what made me a good teacher, is that I had to start from zero. I had so much to learn. And what also helped me was the fact that I had a very scientific approach, that I would try to break things down and, okay, you want to get to this result, therefore you're going to have to do some of this in order to get to that result. And that was my contribution to the Graham technique when I was teaching it, especially when I was teaching it to the Graham dancers and the Graham company, because trying to analyze what Martha was wanted and how she wanted her dancers to dance, and then trying to train the dancers to give her what she wanted.
Yes, the process. And I was lucky to have, uh, well, I took Graham with many teachers, but the one that really sustained my formative process before becoming a dancer, he studied in the university to become a grammar school teacher, kindergarten and grammar school teacher. So he
What's his name?
really, Antonio Gonzalez, he's from Guadalajara, and he used neurolinguistic programming to teach us the sequences. So, for example, to learn how to curl the toes as a warm up, it was lápiz, flex, talón, metatarso, dedos, apunto, apunto, relajo, relajo. Lápiz, like pencil, flex. So I still have his kindergarten songs in the sequence of like he really ingrained the process. And I feel that I was very lucky because I had never had any injury. But I know from people that had another background that dancing and especially trying to learn Graham was hard. So I I have, well, what I have experienced is that Graham becomes more pleasurable and delightful the more I get to know my body. And now it's like, oh, sometimes I am just cleaning and playing whatever music, and I start to move, and I was like, now I get the connection of one shoulder with the opposite butt cheek, and then contraction, and it's like, I, e- even more dots get get connected. So
Mm.
I am ever finding new things in the technique, and even admiring Martha Graham to a deeper level. So my question is this: that for a lot of people, and for me in instances, trying something different with the body can be like trying to go across a wall. But after a certain process, it becomes interesting, easy, delightful. So you already shared that your first study was like, what is this thing? Can you recall a moment, the first moment, or at least a moment where doing the, I don't know, the four position, or doing the first contraction and spirals in Graham were like a revelation of pleasure for you? Like,
Yes,
oh,
I can.
this is not
I
suffering,
have.
this is
I,
tasty.
and we have to keep an eye on the time because I have to go soon. But
Okay.
um, but one of my greatest teachers at the Graham School, her name was Yuriko Kikuchi. You know, you may have heard of
Yes.
her. She's very famous.
Yes, of course.
And so
Yuriko.
she was always very strong on the contraction. She was always say, contraction, back and under. Your pelvis has to move back and under. And you would always back and under, back and under, back and under, back and under. And I still remember I had been studying with Yuriko for 2 years, right? Taking many classes. And finally, after 2 years, I felt my first contraction. I felt it, and it was like, oh my goodness, that was a contraction. And it was huge. It was like, lights flashing, going off. It's fantastic. It was just wonderful. Just an immense ecstasy. So,
Immense ecstasy.
yeah.
Like, wow, the contraction is not what I thought it was. And it is really that mythical self
Well,
organization.
I had to be brave enough, Candia, to go back and under. It was easy to go under, but it was hard to go back because, the whole concept of moving your pelvis back and away from space was something that I had never ever done before. I'd never considered doing that before. I mean, why would I want to do that? And so it took a lot of courage or training or cajoling or encouragement. Finally, oh my goodness, yes, move your pelvis back and under. And wow, there it is. And incredible, incredible.
There it is, going to the unseen, because it's behind. It's like, I don't know how you say it in English. That is like the doors. That, well, yeah. And I remember Victoria Camero screaming to us like, "Go back! It's back! You have to fall back!" And it's like, no, you're not falling. Fall! And oh yeah, I have these eternal moments of Graham technique and Graham learning in my body. It's like those experiences are still like those were fleeting moments that live forever in your body, and I feel that's the gift to me of Graham technique. And I feel that that's a good way to say that truly embodied moments last forever beyond any technique. And I believe that this is part of our human nature, to have this possibility to bodily express what you're experiencing in the moment fully, vulnerably, and create an everlasting impact
Absolutely. I think
in
those are
whenever
beautiful
you're
words, Candia. And
communicating.
also, I want to share with you that one of the things that I think is Martha Graham's genius is that she was able to create a universal archetype. Um, Her movements that she created on the human body are universally, that's why it's recognized all over the world. That's why the company can tour to India, to China, to Russia, because she created a universal archetype, and that was her brilliance. She was able to do that. And thank you
Yeah.
for thank you
Yeah.
for
Everyone understand a contraction and a high release and the spiral, because you know what it is to have your name called by your beloved grandmother, and and it,
right.
we know it and we understand it body to body. So just as to wrap up, uh, what would you like to say to people that just want to be more in their body and feel more comfortable with experiencing pleasure in the body in a sensual way, beyond preconceptions, beyond religion and taboos, and beyond what all this noise about the body, that perhaps we as dancers have been lucky to push that noise apart, but a lot of people are still afraid about the body. What would you tell them?
I would tell them the body is the body is a beautiful instrument. It's absolutely incredibly crafted. Um, the If you think of all of the systems that are in process to make yourself alive, um, and the breathing processes and the eating processes and your elimination processes and your movement processes, it's an incredible instrument. And celebrate it, revere it, treasure it, and enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Enjoy it.
Thank you so much for inviting me to talk to you. I had a wonderful time.
My pleasure. I am really, really honored, David. How can people get in touch with you? Do you have an Instagram?
I do.
Yeah,
DavidHochoy. I'm also on
great.
Facebook.
Also on Facebook.
And
Thank you so much.
You can Google me, and I'm there are quite a few posts about me. So
That's a good way to learn more about you.
yeah.
I really appreciate this opportunity. It really means a lot for me. I admire you. You're a great teacher and inspiration. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here at
you,
the Sensual
Candia. I
Sessions
hope
podcast.
hopefully maybe we can meet someday. All right.
Yeah, I hope I have the luck to meet you in person someday.
Maybe
And
come to New York next year for the 100th anniversary of the Graham Company.
I will be there. I will be there. And
April 17th.
April, April 17. Okay, we have a date in New
All
York.
right.
Thank you so much, David, and also thank you, Sensualist, for being here at this unique episode with the David Hochoy. Go follow him on Instagram. It's his name, David Hochoy. He's also on Facebook, and check him out all over the internet. There's so much about his work
And
in
there are quite a few YouTube videos also.
also on YouTube. Yeah, yeah. And well, if you haven't already, go grab the free guide to awaken sensuality on my website, candiaraquel.com. And until next time, do remember to take the time to sense your fire so you can share the flame. Yay, David. Thank you so much. I